Hey everyone, so today I want to talk about buying your first rental property. When I first started my real estate journey, I did not know what debt to income was. I did not know how much I qualified for. Again, I did not know anything about the process in buying a property and what steps it took in order for me to become a homeowner, even before you get into the steps of being a landlord or anything of the sort. So, on my journey, again, I was probably 22 years old, moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I had purchased this luxury two-bedroom apartment for about 945, and that was a discounted monthly payment, because I opted in for at least a 12-month lease. And so they gave me like a cheaper monthly payment. It should have been like 975. And again, this is before utilities and things like that. So in New York, I didn't have to worry about utilities and things. That was all baked into the cost of the rent. And so in Ohio, it was my first time understanding what utilities was, which is a great step as well, because when you got to pay that gas, that water, that electricity, um, on top of the 945, you then see that you're paying close to 1,200, 1,300 a month. And so you know that you need to set aside about $350 each month in order to take care of these things. And on top of that, you got your security systems. On top of that, you got trash removal, right? And so a lot of things can add up. And then you got your internet, you got your this, you got your that. So I'm talking to those who have already been in a situation where they rented for at least a year. They understand what it takes to be a renter. They have moved out of their parents' household, or they're living with a roommate. As long as you have some inkling of what it takes to manage a home, especially if you're someone who travels like me, I always will tell you to rent within the area first, before purchasing, so that you understand what area you're buying into. Now that I got all of that out of the way, so the first thing that I was looking at was multifamily units. I saw a lot of multifamily units that were 2 bed, 1 bath units. This was not very appealing to me, but it's very, very common in Columbus, Ohio. So when I do find units that are 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath, or even 3 bedroom, 2 bath, those are typically out of my price range. However, those are unique to Columbus, Ohio, and I believe that those have a value that really can't be quantified, right? Because you have basically two single family homes together, homes that people can literally raise their families in, and they don't necessarily need to move every year or two because they need more bedrooms or more space or more bathrooms, right? So if you can find a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom home that's a multifamily unit, that can be very, very beneficial to you, regardless of location. Now, when it comes to location, which I think most real estate investors will tell you is the key to everything, I would agree that you should not buy anything less than a C-class property, especially when it's bad times, right? If you're buying a C-class property in bad times, you're you gotta be buying at a significant discount to where you can cut rental rates if needed. And when I say rental rates, I mean like the income that you will receive from those rental properties. Those C-class properties go up ever so slightly in good times, which allow you to make a really, really good profit and sell. But B-class properties are more stable. You have better income earners. You have people with more stable jobs, nurses, doctors, X, Y, and Z. And typically the property values don't decrease as fast as C-class properties in C-class neighborhoods. And so you won't run into a predicament where it will be a lot harder for you to sell because you have a lot of equity tied up. Maybe you put 20% down or something like that on the rental property. In a B-class neighborhood, you're not going to see a significant drop in value. Now, in an A-class neighborhood, you're going to have high-paying earners. You're going to have great tenants that pay on time, but that doesn't mean that every single tenant is going to pay on time. Just like doctors and lawyers, they still miss rental payments, but not as significantly as everybody else does. Another thing is the property values may drop a lot more than B-class neighborhoods, but it won't drop as much as a C-class neighborhood. The reason why is because these properties tend to be overvalued, especially in good times where everybody is making a lot of money and they want to buy into these areas. But in bad times, they are not looking to buy these properties at such high rates like you see now. And so there'll be drastic cuts, maybe $50,000 or even $60,000 on a $700,000 or $800,000 property. And so those type of cuts is something that you might see in a C-class neighborhood, but you probably won't see in a B-class neighborhood. And so when you factor all of those things in, as long as you're looking to rent and not sell, you may go with the A-class over all areas. However, I think the B-class provides the most flexibility and the most opportunity, because if you have an A-class area, you can only be A-class, but a B-class area can become an A-class area depending on what the government intends to do with the properties, what the community intends to do with the properties and the community itself. And that can literally raise the value of all the properties in the area to a level where that B-class area now becomes an A-class area. And that can have a lot to do with the school systems as well. Has a lot to do with the violence and crime. That has a lot to do with the police presence. And so you can turn a C and B-class area up a notch, up another grade within a 5-year time span, right? A single person can do that, depending on how powerful you are or your voice is in your community, right? And so when I looked at the C-class area that I bought into for my first property, I saw the government initiative to clean the streets. I saw that there was a lot of trash on the floors. I came back a year later, there's no trash on the floors. I came back a year later, and the school system is improving. I came back a year later, and people are selling, and new investors are buying up these properties. What is happening? They're renovating these properties. They're improving these properties. They're getting better, more qualified tenants in post-COVID, right? And so now you see a big change within the C-class area. Now, is the entire area just completely different? Absolutely not. But you see the quality of people, the quality of tenants has completely changed to where you're now getting better tenants, better paying people within these communities. And I can surely confidently say that in the next 10 years, that C-class area is definitely a B, with no doubt about it. And that just allows for more growth, more opportunity. As long as I hold on to it, I'm going to profit not only whether or not I sell, but from the appreciation and from the tenants that I have in the future. And so again, location is very important. You want to look at what the government is doing in certain zip codes and certain communities. All that takes is a Google search. When you Google search and you see what government plans are in place to improve certain communities, you may then want to look into those zip codes, and then you want to go and look at 10, 20, 30 houses within that area. You get an idea for where that government spending is going. You get an idea for which properties are being kept up, which locations are being kept in better shape. And then you can determine where you want to buy, where you want people to rent, because you see that this area is going to continue to keep going up. One word that I hear a lot with real estate agents and people within the community is up and coming, right? So if this is your first rental property, you're probably not buying an A-class property. And so you'll hear something to the effect of, this is an up and coming area. And honestly, I hated hearing that that term, because what I heard was, this is not a good area, but it's improving. And how much is it improving? You can't really quantify how much it's improving. But I did see the improvement a year later. but you couldn't see it right away, right? And then you got to put your trust into other people as well, which can be very, very difficult. So you're asking someone to take your word that is up and coming. No, you got to do your research. You got to understand, did I do a detailed breakdown on the research before purchasing this property? No, I did not. But it did work out in my benefit. Again, I was very, very lucky. I've been lucky on a lot of my real estate ventures. However, I am giving you the game of making better and even more well-informed decisions. One thing that I can say I did very, very well is I negotiated down on the property value. I also viewed tons of properties. I'm talking about over 30 properties before I made my first purchase. And then I bought when rates were super, super low, and I got a payment that was $250 less than what I was paying in rent already for a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house when I was living in a 2-bedroom, 1 bath house apartment. And so that significantly allowed for, you know, a better situation for myself. Not only that, I did buy the best property on the block. So if you watch my last video on buying primary residence, when I tell you not to buy the best property on the block, this was the best property on the block for the community that I was in. And what that did allow for me was the ability to rent it out at a higher price than most properties. But here's the thing, I had to determine what that price was, right? Instead of going with what everybody else is doing, I had to now make a price that I believe people would pay for this property because it's so big and so grand. The great thing about a C-class area is that you'll have a lot of renters. The bad thing about the C-class area is that you'll have a lot of renters because maybe they messed up a situation before and they need a new place to stay. So now you gotta weasel through hundreds of applications and you gotta determine who is the best renter for your situation. And I'm proud to say that I've had a renter who's been renting my rental property now for the last 2 years, and she'll be up for renewal in about 3 months. And I'm hoping that we can come to a nice agreement to where she stays for another year and make that 3 years of her paying down my property. On a 30-year mortgage, having one person pay down your property for 3 years means that they've paid 10% of the yearly of that 30-year mortgage off, right? Not in terms of how much cash value was put into the deal in terms of equity, but 10% of the years associated with a 30-year mortgage, right? So 3 years out of 30, that's 10% of the years that it would take to pay off that 30-year mortgage that one tenant would potentially be paying if she does opt in to renew for 1 more year. And I'm excited about that because I see that as a milestone for me. And that is, again, very exciting. I take it a month at a time and a year at a time with most of my investments. And so, yep, when looking at rental properties, you want to look at locations, you want to visit several homes, you want to look at the class of area, you want to look at what government initiatives are being put in place to improve these certain communities. You'll know which communities are being targeted in terms of in form of improvement and where you can see a change that is going to be beneficial and where families will want to rent. I am a big believer in renting to families because this allows you to have longer term tenants, right? The renter that I have, her children are in college, probably for the next 2 to 3 years. That allows me to know that as long as I make it comfortable for them, they don't have no reason to move, right? They want to have that stability. They want to have that structure. They want to continue to pay me, and they want to continue to live in peace. And so as long as I provide that peace and that stability, I will also have peace and stability knowing that I've had a tenant that always pays on time and is about to pay 1/10 of my years on that mortgage for me. That allows me the time to continue to build my wealth while building equity in the home. and eventually have the capital to just simply pay it off. And so when investing for the future, you want to look at that on a long-term mindset and know that, okay, there is a potential benefit here for me to keep this tenant in place, right? And so when looking at a rental property, as long as it doesn't cost a significant amount, you can actually go and buy a little bit better of a home to where you know that that will attract better buyers. One thing that I know I have is an eye for real estate in terms of I'm only buying something that I would myself live in. And if I wouldn't live in it, then I wouldn't purchase it, right? And so when I put this house on the market, what I do know is that there are going to be a ton of renters who are willing to live in this home. Why? It's because I'm willing to live in this home. I'm from New York. I don't believe I'm bougie, but I have to be bougie compared to Columbus, Ohio people, right? And so I know that if I'm willing to live in this home, then there are going to be a ton of people who are also willing to live in this home. And all I have to do is say that this is a house that I would prefer to live in. And if I'm renting it out, I know that there's going to be a ton of buyers. You want to have somebody in your corner who has an idea of how to live comfortably. You know, that person who's always nagging about this and this and this and that, and how they can only live with this, and this. You want that person in your corner for this investment. You want that annoying person who always wants everything in your corner. And when they say, oh, I like this, oh, I like that house, oh, I like that property, that's when you know you got something good. That's when you know you got something that will rent really, really quickly and really, really easily. And that's going to allow you to have a lot of influx of applications. And that's going to also allow you to navigate through those applications to find the perfect tenant for your situation. Maybe you want to get a property manager for your first time around so that they choose the right tenants, because you might look at their income and not realize that, oh, this person has been at 3 different employers in the last year. It's probably not the best person. You might want to go with someone with a little lower income who's been with their job for 20 plus years, right? That stability, that time in is going to allow you to choose a tenant that is more likely to pay you consistently and on time every time. And that is something that is priceless, right? Just that peace of mind, that lack of stress in that deal. So again, there's plenty of factors into it, but finding the right home is the number one priority. You can always get another renter, but you can never get that money back that you put into that home within a decent time span. At the very latest, it'll take you probably 6 months to offload a new property, and then you would be offloading at a loss because you know you just purchased it, and so there's no equity, and you got seller fees, and you got this and that. And so you got to make sure you make the right purchase every single time in order to maximize your opportunities. So thank you for tuning in. I hope that this was very beneficial and informative for you. I know this is a lot longer than the primary resident one, but again, this information is super, super important to understand and digest when looking at rental properties. So thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.